are you doing?
I'm good, Francis. How are you?
Very good. It's great to see you again. We had a wonderful time with you in 2020 Imagine Talks. You shared a lot about how you built a company and advice on how others will able to benefit from that, from all your experiences as a Navy SEAL commander. But you also do something aside from your former work as a Navy SEAL commander and as a founder of your very successful company in cybersecurity. You also work with an organization called Saved in America, which I've heard a little bit from you, but I would love to learn more about it and share it with our audience here. Can you tell us a little about what Saved in America is?
Sure. Saved in America was founded by a gentleman named Joseph Travers. He's a former Los Angeles law enforcement officer. And he came up with the idea of Saved in America when he was tracking down a girl who had been kidnapped and was being trafficked by gang members. She was moved to Florida, I think. It might have been somewhere else in the South, but somewhere in Florida. And unfortunately, they weren't able to find her, and it turned out that she tried to escape from the traffickers by going through a window, and they caught her and brought her back and killed her and then fed her to the alligators. And it was such a horrific story for this young girl to lose her life in such a terrible way that he thought, why can't we do better at this? And he had read an article about some Navy SEALs who had gone overseas to rescue a child that had been taken there. And he thought, why don't we have Navy SEALs do that here in America? And so he contacted Kirby Harrell, Master Chief retired Kirby Harrell, one of the legends of the SEAL teams, one of their Vietnam era SEALs, just a great guy, great guy. And Kirby put together a team of former SEALs, former law enforcement who go out and rescue these children. They're usually girls 99% of the time, but there are still boys, without a doubt, that do get kidnapped and trafficked. And the numbers on this are stunning. As I learn more about it, I've seen numbers all over the place, but about 500,000 kids a year are involved in human trafficking. It's far more widespread than you would think, and it's happening to kids. I just had a friend who told me that her niece was in danger of being trafficked, and she had started dating a guy, and she said the guy was making her do things that she didn't want to do and wanted her to be with other men. And so she was at a party and talked to a woman there and said, hey, I need help. I need to get out of this. And that woman immediately grabbed her and put her in a hotel somewhere. But this happens far more often than you would think.
Wow. All right. That's I think that's very shocking to many of the people that are listening to this for the first time. I knew it was basically in our backyard, but the numbers are very, very staggering for me to hear that. So then how did you specifically get connected with this operation?
Yeah. There was a young lady named Brooke Malsteller. I had helped her find an internship a couple of years before, and she reached out to me and said she was working with a group called Saved in America and wanted me to meet a gentleman named Kirby Harrell, which Kirby and I ironically had not crossed paths when we were in the team, so it was the first time meeting them. And when I met them, within 5 minutes of hearing their story and what they did, I said, how can I help? I'm in. They said, well, we always need funding. I said, I'm happy to donate. My company and me personally, we try to give back, aggressively to charities. I said, but how else can I help? And so, over the years, I ended up helping with open source intelligence through our company, my cybersecurity company. I ended up, so now I'm the head of the board of advisors. I lead up the board of advisors. I live in Las Vegas. You can tell from my background here. That's not actually my background. I kind of wish it were like that all the time. It's actually daytime now. But the numbers here in Vegas are interesting. Sheriff Joe Lombardo here in Las Vegas, great guy, very aggressive again in helping us against human trafficking. He came and spoke at one of our fundraising events. Former Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt, he spoke at one of our events as well. Just there's a lot of impetus against her, but Sheriff Lombardo was kind enough to introduce us to his team. And when our team met with their team, and they said, be careful what you ask for when you come here in Las Vegas, because we get 1 to 2 missing person reports a week, most of them minors and most of them being human trafficked. It's astounding the amount of human trafficking that's going on in the United States right now. It's just it's so common. And the first thing that I think the statistics or something along the lines of 70 to 80% of children that run away are involved in human trafficking or approached by a predator within a week. It's a matter of days. They're looking for them. If they aren't actually trying to grab them from their parents, then they're looking for them. And the ways in which traffickers work, and make no mistake, I've heard some lines of thought along the lines of that the pimps are, the traffickers are just as just as much victims as the actual girls being trafficked. And I think it's a dangerous line of thought to go down, because at that point you're not creating a sense that these girls are actually being manipulated, but that somehow they and the pimps are in this this thing together, and they're all trying to get out of poverty together. And it really is it's a very misguided line of thought, and I can see how people go down that way. They want to think the best of everybody, but the reality is, and I'm going to be graphic here, Francis, if I can for a second.
Of course.
These guys, the first thing these guys do when they get the girls away is they rape them. They have everybody around them rape the girls, and they inject them with drugs. These aren't people that are are victims. The pimps are not victims, and they are predators. They go and they get these girls. One La Jolla lawyer, her 15-year-old daughter was taken off her bicycle in front of her house and whisked off into trafficking. They go to parties and they lure girls away, and these girls never come home. They're seen leaving, with a bunch of friends. They have the girls recruit other girls, and these girls are willing to do it because they've truly got Stockholm syndrome. And you'll even hear some of the girls say, "Hey, I'm standing up for my man." They'll call their pimp their man, and because they have true Stockholm syndrome. And they break these girls down. And there was one girl, she was taken, and she was only gone for, I'm going to say only 2.5 months, because some of these girls, of course, never come back, and some are gone for years. And it took 1.5 years of rehabilitation before she was able to go back out. Because the first thing they do when they come back out is they get back to their pimp, because they need that fix, because now they're hooked on drugs. They don't think, because they've been told this, they're nothing other than prostitutes. They're hookers and junkies. That's all they think. It takes, it took this girl, 1.5 years to come back and realize, I'm just a girl. I'm just a young girl who had a very bad experience, and I can still do all the things that I intend to do in my life. And that's probably the worst part of it, Francis, is that you're taking a young child here, and you're taking away their future. You're not just taking away a few years of their life. You're taking away their future, because you break down everything about them. Yeah, sorry, long answer to that question.
No, wow, that's thank you for that detailed description, and it really shows that it's not just a one-off thing. And sadly, I actually know someone like that who actually was so lucky to escape, actually. But everything described, right to the point where she was kidnapped and raped for multiple days, and luckily, by the mercy of one of the members of the gang, totally by the mercy of one of the members of the gang, got returned in the middle of the night. Yeah, so everything you said was spot on. She was one of the lucky ones. So can you share with us what exactly, aside from helping with the donations, what exactly do you do in terms of parts of the operations, if you can share that at all?
Sure. On a personal basis, I don't go in the operations, mainly because I don't have a private investigator's license. So all of the operators, they're either former law enforcement or former military special operations. They have private investigator license, so they're licensed to carry weapons. And it's probably important to note, this isn't, none of the operations happen like the movie Taxi Driver, to kind of date myself, where Robert De Niro went and rescued, Jodie Foster in a blaze of gunfire. And the parents contact Saved in America, and that's probably the number one thing we want to do, is to make sure that we have Saved in America's contact information out there. A lot of these parents, they went to the police, and the police attitude in general is, when there's a runaway child, is it's a runaway and we don't get involved. And the first 48 hours are the most critical, because that's when they whisk the girls out of state. Saved in America had one girl they rescued, and I believe that was in Mexico. They got to her within about 4 days through a combination of open source intelligence, using the pimp. The pimp almost immediately takes the girl's social media and starts posting on the girl's social media for her, so everybody thinks that everything's okay. But the pimp was stupid enough to take a selfie with the girl in front of a house in Mexico, and Saved in America was able to use reverse image searching and find that. They used the contracts with the federales down there to find the girl. And when they rescued her, they had 10 other girls they were all about to ship off to different areas. So that first 48 hours is absolutely critical, because that's when it's the real danger zone, when the girls, all these bad things happen to them, and then they get shipped off to, to be trafficked. And it's important to know, the reason this has become one of the number one things, and there are so many children being trafficked, is that the lifetime value of a trafficked child is about $500,000. And
Mm.
so, to the gangs. And so for them, it's a business. And they treat it like a business. They, the way they treat businesses, right? Very aggressively, with deadly violence to support their finances when they need to. And they get very good at it. These predators will pose as a boyfriend. It's often a boyfriend who's maybe 10 or 15 years older. It's a young girl, 14, 15, a 28, 30-year-old boyfriend who's been, talking on social media. They're predators. They know how to identify the girls that have self-esteem issues, or have a broken family life, or are looking for something, and they convince these girls to go meet them somewhere, which is why it's very important for parents to, if you have young girls and young boys, to monitor the social media. You should know everything your child is doing on social media. That is not an invasion of their privacy. That's an absolute requirement to protect them. When they're over 18, that's a different issue. When they're under 18, you should know everything they're doing on the social media, because these guys, they'll get these girls and they lure them away, and the parents never see them again in some cases.
Wow. Okay. So let's say that something like this happens to somebody. Can you just walk us through the steps of what happens the minute they contact Save in America? What are the steps of process that would happen in the usual operations
Sure.
to come to the outcomes?
Yeah, the first thing they do is they confirm that the child's a minor, and I've had this in a couple cases. I had a friend, former SEAL, as a matter of fact, from my one of my platoons or my platoon at SEAL Team 8, and he said he had a friend who was being trafficked. The problem was that she was over 18, and so the Safe in America can't get involved if they're over 18, because there's a presumption under the law that it's a willing, um, willing person, unless there's some other crimes being committed. Second is the parents need to sign over power of attorney to Save in America, so Save in America can act on the parents' behalf. Otherwise, Save in America has no authority. They have no legal authority, because they're law enforcement. Third is the Save in America will get with the parents, and they will ask for access to all the girls' social media, any kind of information they have, that they can start doing open source intelligence research to figure out where she could be. When they locate the girl, assuming they locate the girl, the next thing they do is they contact whoever local law enforcement is, to immediately make that connection and say, here's the situation. They'll typically go, stake out an area to look for the girl, and then when they can actually get positive identification, they call law enforcement, have law enforcement come in. A lot of the time, sometime if possible, they'll fly in the parents, so the parents can be there, so the parents can take positive custody of their child, and law enforcement sees that, and then they can go ahead and the parents will take the child away. They immediately try to put them in rehabilitation for the reasons I discussed with you. Is that one of the first things the girls do is because they've been involuntarily hooked on drugs, and they've been mentally conditioned to believe that the pimp is their friend, family, boyfriend, whatever, and that they need to protect him and get back to him, so that he doesn't get in trouble. And so they need to take them and put them off into rehabilitation for, like I said, as much as a year and a half. Those are the happy stories where the girls come back. Sometimes the girls don't come back, and sometimes the girls will still run away from the rehabilitation facility 3, 4, 5 times, and it's these stories are heartbreaking. I see these parents. I was at one fundraiser, and I remember watching these parents, and they're just average middle class parents, and just seeing them. And their daughter was taken. Luckily they got their daughter back. I remember looking up at them, going, "They don't deserve this." And it sounds like such a naive thing to say, right? Who does? Nobody deserves this, but they didn't deserve this. They didn't do anything wrong in their parenting. They weren't an abusive, dysfunctional family. They were just regular people. It really is. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that humans do this to each other, and it's a tragedy that as a society we haven't done more to prevent it.
Wow. And that's so heartbreaking. Well, then On that same note, what is an operation from your memory that you've been involved with that that you are most proud of? Something that you're most happy that you were able to be part of, that actually, for lack of a better word, changed the person's life.
Sure. Like I said, I don't go in the operations because I don't have a private detective license, so I don't have the release from liability that from that. But probably that's that one where the girl was taken. She was taken from California to Nevada. From Nevada, she was transported down to
Mm.
Mexico. And the guys that saved America, very savvy guys from an IT perspective, a computer technology perspective, as well as a investigative perspective. Like I said, they looked at the girl's social media. They found that the pimp had done a selfie, in front of this house, done a reverse image search on Zillow to find that house. Contacted and this is within hours, right? I mean, this is within 48 hours they did this. Contact the federales, which is very difficult. Down in Mexico, there's very
Yeah,
little rule, and so that was just personal relationships they had because they had been San Diego police officers and they had opportunity to work with the federales, so they developed friends there.
wow,
And those kind of bonds are the ones that make things work. When there could not have been an official request that would have gone from America to Mexico that would have been resolved within a short period of time, particularly if there was any connection to the drug cartels. But they were able to locate it, the girl, and get her back, and these other girls that were about to be shipped off as well. But that's just one story that's reflective of so many others. It's just there's a never-ending supply of these stories, and that's probably the worst of it. Is the problem isn't ending; it's not getting better. It's, if anything, I would say it's increasing. But I don't have the numbers to justify that. But just my feeling is there's been no reduction. I could not tell you from the time that we started this to now. There's been a reduction of 30% in the amount of human trafficking. That's not the case.
wow. I mean, at least people are out there trying to do something that. So you said that even you mentioned that even like if you're lucky enough to rescue them, um, there's still a lifetime of damage. And just how does can you tell us a bit about the rehab they have to go through afterwards, and even years after they've been recovered?
Sure. I think first of all, and I'm not an expert in this portion of it, there are great people that run rehabilitation facilities for these girls. California does not allow you to involuntarily put the girls into these. So they put the girls in there and they can just walk away from them, and they do. They immediately leave and go to their pimps. And it's one of the things Saved in America does. They work with one of the rehab facilities because the pimps will go out there and they'll sit outside in their cars and call the girls and have the girls come out. And so Saved in America works, and they actually put guards outside the facility. And when they see the pimps come up, they're like, "You guys need to move along. Not happening tonight." Um, so sometimes they'll send the girls out of state to Utah or some other states that actually do allow you to involuntarily put your kids into these facilities. And a lot of it's just getting them back. One is getting them off drugs, of course. Two is getting them back into the idea that you're more than just selling your body. There is so much more to you. You've got skills and talents and all these other things, and trying to break down this insecurity that the predators have done to break down the girls so that they could use them for what they wanted to use them for is remind them that you're human beings and you have dreams. Saved in America has scholarships. One girl had a scholarship at one of the fundraisers for going to culinary school, and she was in tears because it had always been her dream and she never thought it would happen. And now she had a $3,000 scholarship, to culinary school. And it's one of these things: is show them the life that you have, the life that you have in front of you, instead of this other life that you were told that you were going to have, and they need to do that and embrace it.
Wow. And after getting toward the end of this, our time is coming to an end here. Any last words of wisdom and perspective that you can give to some of the kids and the parents out there, and the audience member?
Sure. I would say I think a lot of parents think it's too early to warn their daughters about it. And I have two daughters, two boys and two girls. And they're 11 and 13. And I think my wife and I are probably right at the point where we're, gonna tell our daughters. And I think maybe with a 13-year-old, it's been a little bit late, but we also keep her fairly protected as well. But the predators are going after children as young as, I mean, it's terrible. They go after children as young as 4 and 5 years old if they can. And so making your kids aware from the time that, if they have any access to social media, that's the time when you want to start making them aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a horrible thing. So, you need to break it to them in such a way that they recognize the seriousness of it without terrifying them too much, where they rebel. But that's one thing. And two is recognize this. If you see, and this is something that actually happened to me, and it was years ago before I joined Saving America, but I was going into a hotel for a conference, and this young girl pulled up, and another woman dropped her off, and the woman was probably in her 20s to 30s, and the girl got out there, and I was looking at her going, God, why in the world would her parents let her dress like that? She was dressed like a hooker, right? Very high mini skirt, way overdone on the makeup, super tight revealing. She's probably 13. And as I look back years later, I'm like, that was a pimp, a female pimp, because there are female pimps dropping off the girl to be prostituted in. And I think back, years later, what could I have done? What should I have done? But my point there is, look for the signs. If you see something that looks suspicious, particularly if it's a woman, approach the girl and say, "Hey, is everything?" Quietly, where whoever her pimp is around her, can't see it. And remember, the pimp could be a woman, and say, "Hey, is everything okay? Do you need help?" And be willing to help them. There was a woman here in Las Vegas who did that. She runs a human trafficking safe house, and she was at a human trafficking convention, and a girl came up to her, and the girl was there with a pimp, and she slipped her a note and said, "Please help me. He's my pimp, and I can't get away from him. He'll kill me." She grabbed the girl by her arm, went to the janitor's closet, locked herself in. The pimp ran after him, was pounding on the wall, and then she texted the security guard and said, "Hey, please help us," and they arrested the guy, and she got the girl away. But it takes aggressive motions like that to be able to make a difference. That's my advice. Look to take care of your own children, and then look for these signs of it happening, because it is happening right under our noses.
Well, thank you so much for your insights and a peek into the not so pretty world that lives right underneath in our backyard. Always a pleasure, Eric. I'm always so sad that our time is so short, but in that short amount of time, I've learned a lot, and I hope this has shed some light and gives some a peek about what actually happens, and gives a lot more awareness to our audience, and let them know that this is what happens and how they can do their little bit in part to try to reduce it. So thank you again. Look forward to talking with you again, and thank you for all the great work you do out there, Eric.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.